AskReddit thread, what feels illegal but isn't? According to a friend of mine, the first few times you perform surgery, no matter how much training and schooling and certification he went through, he still couldn't help but feel like there was something terribly wrong with the fact that he was allowed to cut into another human being and do stuff to their insides. I don't think there's really anything to prepare you for that. No matter how small the surgery, you have to injure the patient before you can even get in there to start reassembling them. Seriously, hey guys, no matter what, do no harm. Okay, let's slice this mug open and cut some shit out. Do no harm, do no harm. Oh man, I've never noticed how odd that idea is. I've had to open heart surgeries. I've had 2 open heart surgeries, one in the early 80s and the other just last year. I remember right after this last one, sitting in cardiac recovery thinking, not only did I just let someone cut me up and break my sternum, I paid them to do it. It's really an odd experience. Let's see, the next one. Driving with 100 miles per hour or more on the German Autobahn, overtaking police vehicles. Feels wrong, but perfectly legal. I drove an SUV on the Autobahn for a bit. I have driven as fast as 120 miles per hour on isolated roads in the US, so I thought I would try to beat that record. I think that I did, but everything was in kph. Kilometers per hour. And I was not really up for metric conversions while driving at insane speeds. All I can say for sure is that I drove fast enough that the silly thing was starting to shudder a bit, and I was starting to get freaked out. I was not the fastest by any means, although I was in the top 5% or so. I probably would have been faster if a sedan or a sports car. 100 miles per hour is 160 kph. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. I'm not going to go through this kilometer discussion. Let's just skip on to the next comment. Driving with a cop behind you. I'm trying my best. Driving just after passing your test with your father behind you. Driving just after passing your test with a cop behind you and your father behind him. I quit. What about driving after passing your test with a cop behind you that's actually your father? Here's your ticket for speeding and your ticket for not cleaning your room. Sadly enough, I got hit with the triple whammy. My father was a local police officer of a small town and worked as a driving instructor in his spare time for extra cash over the next town. Our town was too small for a roads authority. Knowing this, I booked my driving test in a town in the opposite direction. Little did I know he had started filling in for another person there. So, I show up to the last time slot of the day and discover is my old man. Fantastic. I almost fell not because I did bad, he was just being extra hard not to be biased. But I get my license and prepare to drive home, and that's where it all goes wrong. I told my dad I was getting someone else to drive me to my test so I could drive home in my car if I passed. But what I really did was drive to the back roads myself without a license, and he discovered this when my mom called him and said the person who drove me was back in my hometown looking for me. So now I have my dad following me home, fuming that he has passed me now. But I was smart and stuck 5 km under the speed limit and followed every road rule, or so I thought. There's one section on the highway where a construction speed limit had been put up, that 100 km speed limit down to 50 km. Now, that speed limit was meant for everyone turning the corner and lasted for no more than 25 to 50 miles. So, everyone, and I do mean everyone going straight, ignored it. And that's just what my dad was counting on. He called the other local copper in town and had him waiting in the exact spot. I got done for going in excess of 35 km over the speed limit and lost my license for a month. Sounds like his dad's a dick. Alright, let's go on to the next one. When I got these free refills from Racetrack, you just walk in, get your drink, and walk out. Don't have to go to the register, anything. I always feel like I'm stealing as I walk out of the store. Ooh, that sounds like a nice place. Legally, you can drive a tank down the road as long as the rubber tracks and mirrors and shit. Wait, what? Legally, you can drive a tank down the road as long as it has rubber tracks and mirrors and shit. I see tanks driving down the road often. It's not really uncommon. Iraq, El Salvador, Florida. Obtuse, rubber goose, green moose, guava juice, giant snake, birthday cake, large fries, chocolate shake. It's from the Fairly Odd Parents opening. Passing a cop driving really slow in front of you. Ooh, I would never do that. Driving your firstborn home from the hospital. You don't even have to sign for the child. You just walk to your car, check that your car seat is legal, then the rest of your life happens. I never drove so carefully in my life. What is happening? There's a tiny person here and nobody is checking on me. I was 35 at the time. I need an adult. Let's skip this. Oh wait, where's the next one at? Geocaching. It's a pretty straight edge activity that follow every law. The only thing is you look suspicious as hell doing it. What? A cop pulled us over after we left a park because he thought I hid something in a tree. I had to take him back and explain geocaching. I have no idea what geocaching is. Maybe someone else can explain it. In the same vein, Ingress, augmented reality GPS-based game for phones, especially when I'm explaining it to someone else. I stopped while playing Ingress. My wife was working a late shift, so I was bored and went out to play. I explained it to the cop and showed him the app on my phone. He said it looked like I was casing the plaza for a burglary. He was cool about it, but I'm also a nerdy hipster, so my explanation was probably much more believable. I made a good haul in the sporting goods store after that. Okay. Walking around my neighborhood from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. when everything is quiet. Police thought it was weird too when they stopped me and my friend last night at 1 a.m. Once was hanging out by an abandoned Hollywood video with a friend, eating milk and cookies, high as the dickens but with nothing on us. Cops pulled up and were like, "What are you guys doing?" And we were like, "Eating milk and cookies, you want one?" And they laughed at us and drove away. Buying groceries from one store, then going to another store with them. Who does that? Having sex with a girl and meeting her father later that day. Going through airport security. Getting a student version of a product that lasts for 4 years when you only have 1 more month as a student. Autodesk, though. Driving on your own the first time after you've gotten your license. Ooh. First time I drove on my own, I blew my first red light about 20 minutes into the drive. In the downtown of a largish northeastern American city. I pulled into a parking lot and had a bone-shaking fear like I had just committed a heinous crime against humanity for another 20 minutes. Oh, that's so cute. All because he ran a red light. Free food samples. You mean I can eat several of these tiny cups of food you're selling and then walk away and not buy any of it? Taking out more books from the library when you have overdue fines. You can do that? I thought they didn't let you. Walking into a grocery store and casually strolling past the security guards after not buying anything. Feels as illegal as driving by a cop doing the speed limit with nothing remotely illegal in your car or high/drunk. Please don't notice that I exist. Why do I always feel guilty in this situation? I was once in a grocery store, and an elderly gentleman declared loudly as he walked past the cashier, "I have nothing with me." That's funny. Honestly, I get nervous around cops in any situation with literally no reason. The weird thing is, I live in a country where cops are pretty damn legit. As long as you aren't breaking the law, and you aren't being an entitled dick to them, cops are pretty much like buddies in New Zealand. They're cool guys/gals. If a cop is behind me, I pretend not to see him to make it seem like I drive perfectly all the time. If he pulls over to the next lane and passes me, I act shocked, like, "Oh, the police?" You mean drive perfectly apart from never checking your mirrors or blind spot? Sadly, too many people think that is driving perfectly. Now, I just imagine a cop driving by a car, looking out his window and sees someone freaking the fuck out that there is a cop driving by them, pulls them over for acting suspicious. I knew somebody who held a legitimate customer service job that they worked from home. When the call volume dropped drastically, the managers wanted to keep good stats. So, rather than send a handful of people off, They required everybody to be standby. They were required to check in every half hour to see if they needed to jump back on. No pay for any of the time they weren't directly taking calls. This lasted like a month until enough people quit to balance things out. People tried to file complaints, etc., but the consensus was that it wasn't exactly illegal. Only greasy. If you are in the US, that's still super illegal. Basically, those wages could be paid for things like you spend on-call time spent traveling for business and even time you spent sleeping. Hey, up until the shady standby, sounds like a decent job for telecommuting. For telecommuting? Yeah, I know I added some extra syllables to that. Videotaping police officers. Cop in PA here. It is completely legal to tape us doing our job. I have had many car stops where the person tells me they are recording. I say, so am I, and I tap my body cam or point to the dash cam and just smile. Go through my normal routine and on my way, no incident. I find it keeps both parties safer if we both have footage of everything. The only time it can get in the way is if there's a serious crime and you're trying to push your way to the red tape to film everything. You can film, just please don't go pushing and shoving or move up where you shouldn't be. You sound like a reasonable person. I like my cops. I like that in my cops. I'm old enough to have used Napster. I keep waiting for feds to bust me for using Spotify. Wow, you just made me realize that there's a generation out there who never lived through the growing pains of the internet. Returning something for a full refund, even though the thing works, for the reason of didn't like it. Stepping on my pet's foot by mistake. If you ask my mom, she thinks my excellent TV reception. She has shitty 20-year-old TV on basic cable. I have a 1080p 46-inch hooked to an antenna in the attic. She keeps referring to how I pirate my television. I've been trying to convince my 80-year-old grandmother on a fixed income to let me install an antenna for her so she can drop the $200 a month cable bill, of which they watch about 5 channels. Strip clubs. Maybe it's the smoky atmosphere, maybe it's the big guys who look like they belong in a mafia movie sitting in the back, maybe it's the amount of titties in my face, maybe I just don't feel comfortable because I'm a tiny 21-year-old white girl watching other men watch naked women. The twist ending. You can't help it if you aren't noticing them, noticing you, noticing them nice titties. Noticing no longer looks like a real world. Where I'm from, buying pot. Hey, you got any ganja? Yes, sir. This is a marijuana dispensary. Why are you wearing a hoodie and slouching over? Smoking indoors in countries where it's still legal to smoke indoors. Cussing in front of my mom. I turn 25 next month. When radio stations play ads with sound effects that sound like they could be coming from my car. Personally, I feel like it's very distracting, dangerous, and annoying. Yes, technically the radio is coming from my car, but you know what I mean. Banging 18-year-olds out of high school girls. Banging 18-year-old high school girls. Hell, we can bang 16-year-old girls in Canada. Some clarification response to the comments to this question. Age of consent, blah, blah, blah. I'm not reading that. Check your local laws, but salvia is the first thing to come to mind. Salvia is a hallucinogenic drug with a short high, but is legal in most places. Civil forfeiture. Masturbating on a plane. It's more frowned upon. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Seriously depends on where the plane you are. Taking pictures of anyone on public area. Having sex with animals in Denmark. Having sex with severely mentally handicapped people. Having sex with a 15-year-old when you are 80 yourself in Denmark. Having sex with severely mentally handicapped 15-year-old animals when you are 80 yourself in Denmark. Wow, Denmark's crazy. Corporations lobbying politicians. Walking out of a store without buying anything. And finally, sneaking food into the movie theater. There's a whole bunch more replies, but I'm not going to read them.